What have we got here? Eggs and fruit.
The eggs here taste so much better than Australia.
Yeah. So we are officially in the Philippines now. I'll pull the blind up so you can see.
We didn't understand
There we go. That's the view.
I can tell you. This is like.
Oh yeah. So shopping mall, yeah.
Yeah, we have to go there.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool, yeah. So that's one of the shopping malls that we're going to try visit while we're here. It's kind of like I guess a mock-up of Venice in Italy, so that should be pretty cool. But I thought I'd just quickly show you the room. This is the living area. This is the bedroom. So the bathroom there. This is our room. It's pretty messy at the moment just because we only got here yesterday. So this is the first official full day in the Philippines. And then this is the front door and the kitchen's in here. I brought literally a half a suitcase worth of supplements with me and powdered peanut butter. But I've actually yet to find rice cakes in the Philippines, which I'm really upset about. So we're going to try one of the international grocery stores later today to try see if we can find rice cakes. But you'd think of all the countries in the world that Asian countries would have rice cakes, being that it's rice, right? But no. So yeah, but I'm making do for the meantime. Oats don't sit the best with me, but it'll do in the absence of easier to digest carb source. Got those, and then I found these as well to try. So yeah, and the omega-3 eggs, some microwavable rice because I'm not buying a rice cooker. Honey, good old Moccona coffee, some cocoa powder. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Yeah, we've still got to train today. I'll go to one of the shopping malls, but I'm still catching up on work from yesterday because with all the travel and all, I didn't really get a chance to do all of my Tuesday check-ins yesterday on Tuesday. I tried to at the airport, but it was just too noisy and the Wi-Fi reception was just a little bit too choppy, so I kind of just cut my losses after a few hours of attempting it. But yeah, coffee, second coffee of the day, a little bit of fat-free, lactose-free milk, and yeah, because I'm only really using half a teaspoon of this in each cup, and because these cups are comical in size, I'm allowing myself to have 2 to 3 caffeinated coffees while I'm here. But yeah, because that'd be about the equivalent of a third of an actual fully caffeinated coffee that I would have in Australia. So yeah, as you can see though, I do my best to stick to my nutrition plan even when traveling internationally. So this is pretty much my usual breakfast meal, minus the rice cakes, because we have yet to find any rice cakes, but we're going to try our luck at an international grocer today. But that said, for the meantime, I'm having an apple for some extra carbs. I'm going to drown this in honey to make up for the lack of dates. There's no flaxseed, hemp seed or chia seed in here. So it's basically the cocoa powder, which is a pretty ideal substitute for cacao powder, a little bit less nutrient dense because it's a little bit more processed, but what gives? And yeah, the International Protein Synergy. I brought this with me over from Australia, as did I with the glutamine, the EAAs, all of that, so I can have my usual intra-workout while I train and my usual protein in my meal, number one. But yeah, I've even brought my powdered peanut butter with me. I've just yet to find rice cakes, so it'll be the usual breakfast minus the rice cakes. We even managed to find an Australian brand of, or not an Australian, I should say, a brand of fat-free Greek yogurt that we do get in Australia here. So that's what's in that. We've got some eggs here, some omega-3 eggs, and then just some brown eggs. And my favourite mustard, which they don't have back in Australia, unfortunately, French's honey mustard. Even have some pre-cooked chicken breast here. Yeah, do my best to stick to my meal plan, but in the absence of rice cakes, what I might have to do is have some of Michaela's rice flour, make some cream of rice. We brought this with us from Australia as well. And I brought Michaela a bunch of LCMs as well for when she has to carb up. So yeah, that's that. Time to get a move on though. I'll finish making this coffee, meal number 1, eat that and dive into work. Now, in the event that I can't find rice cakes, I did get this backup carb source, which is a little bit higher in fats, but it'll still do the job. And cinnamon, of course, cannot forget cinnamon. Good old, faithful old cinnamon. This is actually empty. Let's put that down there. All right, so I went a little bit AWOL on my usual breakfast because I still wanted to try make it as close to the usual as possible. I put the powdered peanut butter on top of this instead of on the absent rice cakes, and then I also topped it with a little bit of extra added fats in the form of 85% cacao dark chocolate. So dive into this and then work time. 1:40, and I've finally finished yesterday's check-ins, so I'm halfway through the day. I'm caught up, let's just say that. But it's time to have my pre-workout meal, and then we're going to hit Gold's Gym in about an hour, I believe. So this is what I'm dealing with. Cream of rice, so 80 grams of cream of rice, 30 grams of International Protein Synergy as a protein sludge, whatever you want to call it. 80 grams of blueberries, 20 grams of honey, some cinnamon to taste, and then of course a digestive aid and a berberine. And I'll find something on YouTube to watch while I eat this. Yeah, Gold's Gym. Apparently the gym equipment's really good. Some old pieces there, but the gym's just quite small. I'm gonna try to record if I can. Probably only one working set of each exercise though. It's a legs and arms session. So I'll do that. Just because it's a new environment, new location, I don't know how busy it gets. I don't want to get in people's way. I don't know what the rules are around recording there. So hopefully I can record. And yeah. What is going on, guys? Commentary video for you today. Now that I'm finally back in Australia, I thought I'd better get back on the vlog bandwagon and play catch up, because this was actually recorded a number of weeks ago when I was still in the Philippines. So a little shy of a week ago, I just got back home to Australia from visiting the Philippines and visiting Vietnam just for a couple of bodybuilding shows, the muscle contest in the Philippines and the muscle contest in Vietnam. And on the tail end of the Vietnam trip, Michaela and I did tag on a little bit of a holiday. We had a few days exploring Hanoi, going to the, what is it called? The Ha Long Bay, that's what it is. So we went to Ha Long Bay for a one-day cruise. We quite quickly realized that we're not the cruise type, but that's a story for another time. Yeah, I just figured I'd go over this. So this was my first session in the Philippines, legs and arms, in a gym that I've never trained in before, for obvious reasons. It's a new country, using equipment that I've never touched, to be fair, and just surrounded in an environment that felt completely foreign. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, because this session reminded me of something really simple, but very relevant and really important. Sometimes you just have to make it work. And what I mean by that is I walked into this gym with a plan initially, just a normal structure. I figured I'd just use the usual machines that I use and just work through my session bit by bit, because my normal limbs A training session doesn't really have any exotic movements in it. It's got basic movements. But instantly I realized none of that was going to happen when I got to this gym, because it had a different selection of equipment. Some of the basic machines weren't in this gym. They didn't have a hack squat or anything like that. It was a different layout. The entire vibe was different. It was different in every way, essentially. And honestly, that can throw you off more than a lot of people realize, I think. We're creatures of habit, especially those of us who are attracted to bodybuilding or just the bodybuilding lifestyle, even if you don't compete. If you're just a hobby builder, as I like to say, or a recreational lifter, we tend to get attached to our setups, our angles, the exact leg press that we like, the exact preacher curl pad that lines up perfectly with our elbows. And we get used to our routine, our environment, and our overall rhythm about how we go through our sessions. And when all that gets disrupted, you have a choice. You're faced with either the choice of getting irritated, complaining, and pulling the pin on the session, or telling yourself, oh, today won't be great, I'll just start fresh next week. Or there's the alternative, where you can do the only thing that actually helps you move forward still, and that is to adapt. So this session forced me to improvise. Half of the machines that I normally use weren't here, or they were just different variations of it. In fact, I actually kind of liked this leg extension. I would say that this is probably one of the best leg extension machines I've ever used. A close second to the Flex leg extension. There's a Flex Fitness one that I used back in Thailand when I lived there, and that was phenomenal. But yeah, this was a very good leg extension. But half the machines that I normally use weren't here. The cables definitely felt different. The dumbbells didn't go as heavy, and the atmosphere was just strange. Like, new language, new faces, new sounds. And it was in a shopping center as well. It was in a shopping mall. And the thing is, none of that is a problem. It only becomes a problem when you decide that it's a problem. I could have easily walked in and realized it wasn't what I expected and just mentally checked out from the moment I got in the gym, but that would have achieved nothing. And the truth is, the conditions don't need to be perfect in order to get the job done. They just need to be workable. And your job is to bridge the gap between what you wanted to do and what you have and what you are able to do with what's available. So instead of trying to force the session to match the structure that I normally run with, I decided to modify the session around what was in front of me. Different equipment, that's no worries. Find the closest movement pattern or the most similar exercise alternative. Angles are slightly off. I'll just slow the rep down, control the eccentric, and make it more challenging in other ways. If you can't do your usual movement like a leg extension, find the next best thing and just focus on doing whatever gets the job done. Because the goal isn't to perfectly reproduce the plan when you're training away from home. It's to create the stimulus needed for the promotion of muscle growth. And everything else is negotiable and I guess you could say modifiable. And I think that's something that a lot of people do struggle with, not just when traveling, but in life, in prep, in the off season, in any phase that demands consistency. People tend to overestimate how much perfection matters and underestimate how much resourcefulness matters. I think a lot of people have the assumption that progress only happens when the stars are in alignment, when their usual gym is open or they have the machine free that they want to use, or when they're fully rested, when everything just feels right. But bodybuilding and honestly life doesn't care about conditions. It only cares about choices. Conditions will always fluctuate, but the choice is always yours, regardless what the conditions are. This session reminded me of that fact. It wasn't the ideal environment or the ideal scenario, but ideal isn't the standard. Effective is, in my opinion. And what actually matters is showing up and finding solutions to your problems that you're faced with. Every time you choose to adapt instead of complain, every time you find a way instead of finding an excuse, you train something far more crucial and far more valuable than any muscle group. You're training your resourcefulness and you're training your ability to improvise. You reinforce the idea that you are somebody who follows through, somebody who problem solves, and who doesn't get derailed because the conditions weren't perfect. And if you want longevity in bodybuilding or any sport and real personal growth in general, that mindset is everything as far as I can tell. You're not always going to have the perfect gym. Let's just face it. It's just the way it is, especially when traveling. You're not always going to feel 100% because when you're away, you might be sleeping on a bed that you just can't quite get the same level of comfort in, or the temperature's off, or whatever it might be. You're not always going to be in your routine or your home environment or what you deem to be your comfort zone. travel, work, stress, life, they're always going to give you reasons to slow down, to postpone, or skip and just restart next week. But progress belongs to the people who make it work anyway, in spite of those obstacles. The ones who show up in a new gym and still execute and undergo some degree of effort and do some sort of training session. The ones who travel yet stay consistent while doing so. The ones who take imperfect conditions and still find a way to make it work. Those are the people who actually get somewhere. And honestly, training somewhere completely new has its own benefits. It does force more creativity, I find. It forces your problem-solving skills. It forces you to use your problem-solving skills, I should say. You can't just simply rely on the familiar layout of your local gym or the exercise selection that you've repeated for months or years. You have to think a lot more on the spot, adjust and improvise. It sharpens your self-awareness and forces you to lift with more of a conscious effort rather than just being on autopilot, because I think we do get stuck in autopilot when we are so ingrained in our routines. Whether it be driving to work, we tend to take the same route to work every single time rather than changing it. When we go to the gym, we obviously follow the same program. So we tend to go on autopilot with things that we don't have to think about too much consciously, but you have to consciously think a lot more when you're training away from home. And that can be surprisingly productive, I think. In some ways, these inconvenient sessions end up becoming some of the biggest breakthroughs and some of the most fulfilling training sessions. I mean, some of the best training sessions I've had are the ones where I've been thrown out of routine or forced to improvise and adapt. So I guess the take home that I want everybody to get from this is, if you struggle with consistency when life isn't perfectly structured, just remember this. You don't need the perfect setup. You don't need the perfect equipment. You don't need to have the perfect conditions or the day to unfold exactly how you expected it to. You just need willingness to get the job done. You just need to show up and adapt. Because the people who succeed in anything in life, especially in bodybuilding and other extreme endeavors, aren't the ones who wait for the perfect moment. They're the ones who create progress amidst imperfect conditions. So yeah, this session in the Philippines wasn't my usual session, but it was a reminder that the exact mindset that builds long-term progress is about making it work, finding a solution to the problem, and showing up regardless. I really do think perfection is overrated, and consistency is what actually changes you. And so that's kind of what I want to end with. I just want to say thanks for watching this, guys. And I believe this is toward the tail end of the session. There might be one other exercise, I believe, yeah. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for watching. If you did enjoy it and you'd like to get other tidbits of knowledge, or you just want to show your support, feel free to subscribe, give the video a like, leave a comment letting me know what you thought of the video or what you would like to see in future videos, and I'll do my best to deliver. But again, thanks for watching, guys, and I will speak to you soon, no doubt. Peace out.